Hello, folks. Our Wimbledon coverage this year is sponsored by Local Tennis Leagues, the home of friendly, competitive tennis in the UK.
With over 10,000 players in local tennis leagues up and down the country, it's never been easier to find someone locally with a similar ability to have a hit with.
It really is tennis on your terms, competitive and with total control of when and where you play over 8-week rounds.
It's also a fun way to get fit, meet new people, make the most of your local park or tennis venue, and get those competitive juices flowing.
And it's absolutely open to all standards. You just need to be 18 or over to play.
So whether you're at the beginning of your tennis journey like me,
or a master on the court like me, there's something for everyone.
Once you're signed up, there's also the chance to win prizes, play for points, and receive a free tube of tennis balls just for playing your matches. You also get a host of other great benefits, including access to the Wimbledon ballot.
So what are you waiting for? Join Local Tennis Leagues today at www.localtennisleagues.com and use our exclusive checkout code weekly50 in capitals for 50% off your £18 entry fee.
That's www.localtennisleagues.com, weekly50 at the checkout. The link is in the description. So get ready to play some friendly,
competitive tennis
on a court near you.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel and Kim. On today's Wimbledon Round One catch-up, sponsored by Local Tennis Leagues.
Rafael Nadal survives a round one scare.
Iga Swiatek returns to score win number 36.
And after a year out, Serena Williams makes her long-awaited return to the singles court.
Chris, today is the 28th of June and we are here to catch up on round one at Wimbledon at Tennis Weekly HQ. Serena Williams is still on court. There are still some round one matches still to be played, but it is all going very, very nicely at Wimbledon. And somewhere there, or somewhere coming home from there, is Kim, who managed to see Rafa today, got out her sunnies, got out her Spanish-themed clothing to support her man, but yeah, she's on the way back. So you have kindly filled in for our round one catch up, and yeah, it's been another eventful. Well, it's been a eventful last couple of days, both on and off the court.
It's been a very eventful last couple of days, and it's still going. I'm glued to the live score. So if there's a pause or a delay, it's because Serena is still on as we speak. She's just been broken back for 3-3 in the third. My nerves are shot, but I will do my best.
I thought they were shot after Muguruza and Greet Minnen had a Muguruza just stormed off the court. It looked like
she wanted to stop play, and I can understand why, because that's not the sort of set that she should be losing. And I think she was complaining about poor light, but I think she might have been the first people on court to complain about poor light. But at the same time, I understand the end of a set. It makes more sense if you know that you won't complete the match. But I think she'll be having many, many words with Conchita after that first set. She'll need some help.
Yeah, she definitely needs it. I mean, she's just been in bad run of form in the most, well, to be honest, the first half of the year. So it's no surprise. She's in a real tussle against Minnen. But yeah, we'll obviously look into all the action from round one. We're going to start with day two in the first half, go back onto day one in the second half. We're also going to be revealing our collector set player picks and predictions. And then we're going to finish on looking ahead to day three at Wimbledon. But Chris, obviously, we've got to start with a bit of a downbeat news. And I think it's the thing no one really wanted to address, but unfortunately it has reared its ugly head. And that is COVID affecting, in particular, the men's draw. Marin Cilic last night is out, and today Matteo Berrettini is also out. Now, these players have tested positive, and this is not Wimbledon saying you tested positive, therefore you're out of the competition. This is they have tested positive, and they don't want to endanger fans, fellow players, staff working at the event, and have pulled themselves out of the competition, which is a smart move. But at the same time, I mean, hearing that Berrettini news today, that was, I mean, he described it as heartbreaking. I feel like the nation's heart broke for him because he was one of the favourites. We were sort of, thinking, could he do the unthinkable and go on and win his first Wimbledon Grand Slam after getting to the final next year? So an absolutely rotten piece of luck for him, given his form coming into the tournament.
Absolutely. I saw the news on Twitter this morning, and I just thought it's such a devastating blow. I remember a similar thing happened to, I think it was Jo Konta last year after she won the Nottingham title. They both kind of unbeaten coming into Wimbledon, and I mean, I put him down to the final potentially. I thought he had a really good shot at winning it this year. So that's a big blow. Cilic as well, coming off some great form in the French. Obviously, it's his best surface. I think it's obviously gutting for them. I think it's also quite gutting for tennis fans because in the absence of, there's obviously not all of the Russian players who kind of in the top 10. It does mean there are some big holes in the draw. And there is a conspiracy theory because they're both in Nadal's half of the draw. So
here we go. Here you are with the conspiracy theories. Yes, we're all aware that Nadal. I mean, based on what we saw earlier with Nadal versus Serendolo, I feel like he's going to need all the luck he can get to
and he's having it. He's having it,
right? He's had two big pieces of luck, particularly with Marin Cilic was in his quarter, Berrettini was in his half. So yes, you would say, maybe Nadal is probably the most...
He's the real winner out of this.
Yeah, he's the real winner, right? But I mean, in terms of, this situation, we've seen and heard about, new variants in the UK, and, Wimbledon there's no restrictions this year. It's completely at capacity. There is no testing, there is no daily testing requirement from players. Now, what does this mean for Wimbledon? Should we be worried? Because when I first saw this with Marin Cilic, I thought, bad luck. That's really unfortunate, but the draw moves on. But the fact that we've had two players and we're not even finished day 2 yet, have they got cause for concern?
I think so, and they've put out a statement saying they're reviewing kind of their decision not to have daily testing as a requirement. I think that it's definitely something where they'll need to monitor it. And if I was a player, I'd be very, very careful. I'd be limiting my contact. I wouldn't be kind of being too friendly as I kind of approach.
I'd be putting a face mask on.
Oh, I mean, actually, that's true. I think I probably would as well.
I would be interested to see players going forward in the competition, whether they break out their face mask again, given what has happened. And it's just, I think, a bit of a reminder for everyone that unfortunately COVID is still about. Yes, we want to get on with our lives and enjoy all this tennis in front of us, but you want to take no chances.
I mean, imagine Serena after a year preparing for this, and what if she caught COVID from Berrettini yesterday? I'm not saying I don't think they had contact with each other, but there's that picture with Nadal, obviously.
Yeah.
When did Berrettini catch it?
There are some selfies on Instagram and on social media that are not aging well as we speak, given these events.
Did Nadal get tested? Maybe his performance was subpar for a reason.
Well, I mean that is an interesting point though, because from the player perspective, if I'm feeling symptoms, but there's no onus on me to do testing, and let's say we're heading into the business end, it's round 4, maybe it's my first ever time in round 4 of Wimbledon, and I don't want my dream to be over. I mean, there's surely going to be some players who are going to be like, well, I don't want to know. I'm not going to test, and I'm going to keep myself in the competition. I don't think, I think it's very magnanimous what Berrettini and Cilic have done in terms of, protecting the welfare of, other individuals around them.
I think it could also be Berrettini made it clear that he was pretty unwell. He had flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if you're a top player, he's got big partnerships, and it's a very, very, very bad look if you take yourself out on court having tested because you weren't feeling well, and then you actually cause a major problem. So I think it's kind of the bare minimum. I think if you are asymptomatic, obviously, then there's no need to get tested. But I think it was something where both of these players were not well at all.
So do you think players should feel the responsibility that they should withdraw themselves, even if there's no
If you're feeling
requirement
symptoms,
on them to do so.
I think, well, I mean, it's a moral piece. It's something about your partnerships, the brands that you represent. It's about if you aren't feeling fully fit. I mean, a lot of players will go and still play because you're not a risk to anybody else. But I would say with this one, it's different because there are big impacts you could have on one of the biggest sporting events in the world. So if you do get tested and you do know that, you can't not pull out.
Oh, do you know, it's interesting.
You'd be playing. You'd have made it through qualifiers.
You know what? If I was a qualifier, you know, on my dream run, you know, and I wouldn't want it to end, and as much as, you know, there would be a part of me being like, yes, and let's say I tested positive.
Big paycheck. No points though, Joel. No ranking points. Would that change your opinion?
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, I do think it could be a dilemma that, you know, players do face, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, what Wimbledon do, what the players do, and whether we see any withdrawals because of COVID. Obviously, we don't want to see that, and I do think I mean, let's be honest, it has sort of, I feel like, decimated the integrity, certainly, of that bottom half of the men's draw.
Completely.
But yeah, I don't. I was hoping we were over it, but it just seems to be, yeah, one of these things that we're still having to contend with, and there's going to be a heightened sense of anxiety, I think, just maybe, you know, in the grounds, kind of going forward over the rest of the, you know, the rest of the week and going into next week as well.
Completely. I think it's something where it's definitely caused a stir, but I think we should probably talk about Nadal, the main beneficiary of it. I mean, as long as he can stay away from Berrettini now after those selfies, I actually think it might be a great way to explain his kind of poor form today. But it was less than convincing.
Well, people were saying that about Novak Djokovic yesterday, which we will come on to in the second half. But, you know, there was talk of him looking a bit lethargic. I mean, he certainly was expected to walk through that match. And, you know, similar to Nadal, very, very sluggish.
Uncharacteristic
in his
errors,
match.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And for Nadal, he's had previous here, you know, Dustin Brown, Steve Darcy. I was sort of wondering, is Francisco Cerundolo going to add himself, you know, to this list? Because, you know, in that fourth set, Cerundolo was 4-2 up. It may have looked like we were heading to a fifth. But, you know, Nadal did, you know, come through and win those, you know, last four games of the match and was able to nip it in the bud. But at the same time, yeah, it wasn't as convincing as I think a lot of people were, you know, expecting against a player who, yeah, is a good player on a clay court. And I would expect to do well in South America on the Golden Swing. But on Sed's court at Wimbledon against a two-time champion in Rafa Nadal, I wasn't expecting it so much.
I wasn't expecting it either. I think the commentators got a bit overexcited because they made it seem like he was really kind of on the way out when he was down, going into kind of at the end of the fourth set when he had points to go down a double break to 4-1. I think that would have been obviously interesting, but you would never think he would lose that match, even if it went to a fifth. Obviously, he's Rafael Nadal. I think he hasn't had the match practice. Kind of, if you look at it over 5 sets on grass, no one really has. If it was a straight sets match, so a 3-set match, it would have been straight sets. So it could be a concentration thing. He didn't look as good as expected, but I mean, all you've got to do in the first few rounds is get the W, which he did, and he stormed back. He was tested. He passed the test. So I don't think it's less than convincing, but job done.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because I think in his press he did say, you know, my body, you know, I'm not as young as I used to be, and it takes time for my body to recover, and that's, you know, one of the reasons he just doesn't do grass court, you know, warm up events. Yeah, he may play the odd match at the odd exhibition match in Hurlingham, but you know, that is one of the reasons he, you know, doesn't tend to do, you know, lead ups like he used to. You know, he has played Queens in the past, but that's going back quite a few years now. But yeah, perhaps there was, you know, a bit of rust there. I mean, one player who didn't really show signs of rust and just sort of continued where she left off really on the clay court was Iga Swiatek. Quite, you know, was sort of, you know, given the was given the platform to open in the absence of Ash Barty today on centre court, and she duly delivered, Chris, because she added another bagel to her season against Jana Fett. 36th consecutive win. I think she won 6-love, 6-3. And Fett, she's an interesting player because she had match points against Caroline Wozniacki a few years ago.
That was on the year that Wozniacki won the title.
Exactly.
The
So
2018 title.
she is a handy player on her day, can bring her level against top players, but Iga Swiatek really just didn't let her get into the match.
She really didn't. I think it's it's unbelievable. Kind of you haven't played since you won the French. You just rock up with a 6-love set, and I think most people the adjustment is quite a severe adjustment.
Yeah,
it's not like
ask Rafa.
Well, exactly, and she kind of started like a well-oiled machine. She had a few more difficulties in the second set, so I think it was over an hour and 15 the match in total, considering the first set was very swift. So there were some challenges. She got through it again. I think that it's great that she got through. I think we really could do with Iga having a deep run at this tournament as well. But the question I want to ask you is, who do you think should have opened up the Tuesday for the women?
Well, I said this on the preview. I still think it should have been Simona Halep.
I think Halep. She had a great interview where she said that she'll have another chance, which I really like. This isn't her chance. Yeah, I'm like, love
well,
that
hang on.
attitude.
She, and based on her win against Karolina Muchova, because she won that very comfortably, 6-3, 6-2. I thought this was going to be a lot closer than that scoreline. But she played very, very well, very, very convincing. And I'm not really sure what to expect from Halep this tournament, because there were injury concerns. She had to pull out of her lead up tournament in Bad Homburg, just as a precautionary measure, I think, for her body. But very decent win for Halep, and has Kirsten Flipkens next.
She does indeed. I think that's a great win for Flipkens. The Belgian veterans have had a good tournament. Wickmeyer got through today as well after coming through qualifying. But back to Halep. So I was super impressed with the performance. Obviously, Muchova was injured at the French, so she hasn't been kind of as prepared as she might want to be, or as comfortable moving as you need to be on grass, because you really have to trust your footwork and you have to trust your footing. And especially if you're trying to protect an injury, that can be very, very difficult. So I kind of understand that, but I rewatched that final recently, parts of the final against Serena, and she went for her shots. And I think that's when I saw Halep in Rome, it was way too defensive. And so I think what I like about her grass game and her grass game today, maybe not so much in some of the matches I've seen on grass so far this season, is that she was up in the court and she was taking that ball on. And I think that's the difference for Halep, is when she's winning points by taking on the ball, it really, really helps her, because if you are just playing the margins of retrieval, it's so hard and so much effort to consistently kind of get those points. And she really got the balance right today. One more thing I'd say on Halep was, in her pre-tournament press conference, she mentioned she was asked about a certain post by Patrick Mouratoglou about the fact that he fully took responsibility for her loss at the French Open. And did he ask her before he posted it, and what did she think of it? And it was quite funny, because she was like, he never asked me about what he posts. She didn't necessarily agree with it, but they're in a much better place now. And it was it's interesting, because it's definitely a partnership where you feel like
they're both personalities.
Yeah.
They are both personalities. It doesn't feel like there's
it's chaos,
a backroom staff. It doesn't feel like there's a backroom staff there with Mouratoglou, does there? It feels like they're both personalities. They're both
a lot of feelings in it,
front and center. And I was wondering with this partnership, in terms of how do those personalities combine? Can they combine? Because we see both of them are very outward going, love to express themselves, and whether you can have that sort of whether how those two can combine is, I think, an interesting, and it sounds like it's something that they've had to work with. It's not just been an instant, seamless transition.
Yeah, and you've seen that with Darren Cahill. With Darren
Mm.
Cahill, there's that famous thing on YouTube. I think that she's in Miami or something, and she's getting really down on herself. And when you see a post from like Patrick Mouratoglou where he's saying, it's all my fault, it's all my responsibility, and he's getting down on himself, it's a bit of an unusual one because normally that isn't necessarily what a coach would communicate and kind of put out there because it's quite a personal relationship that people have in those sorts of spaces. But maybe it's so that she doesn't get down about herself. He tries to take the blame. So there could be something in it that could be interesting. But either way, she's through. I didn't think the partnership would last until now. And I'm not sure where they are in the draw, Serena and Halep, but I mean, that would be a fascinating encounter given who is in Halep's box. But I'm here for the tennis, obviously.
Well, I mean, you spoke about it. Let's talk about Serena Williams. It's currently 5-all.
It's so stressful.
In
she
the
just
third set.
didn't serve it out. I can't cope.
I know, right?
It's so hard to hold a conversation, genuinely.
I mean, it's been quite topsy turvy. Harmony
please let her
Tan
win. Honestly, come on, Tan, please.
She needs to read the script, right? No. Harmony Tan, 7-5, won the first set. Serena Williams came back, won the second set, 6-1. I feel like they had a match within a match with that never-ending juice game.
Yeah.
Very early on in that second set.
Was commentating, and she said that game was 19 minutes and 43 seconds, and the first set of Kerber Nadanovic was 16.
Yes.
And I'm like,
yes,
that is, I mean, that's a stat. That really is.
That's a call for Mladenovic just to keep to the doubles arena, right?
I think it's. Am
I being a bit harsh? A
6-love set in 16 minutes is pretty dire by anyone's standards.
Yes.
I mean, she's obviously so talented. Some of her shot making, even highlights reel, is unbelievable. It's all between the ears with her, unfortunately. And when she has a partner, she can do it. When she's by herself now, I don't think she can. I think having her family as her team also makes it a difficult situation for her. I'm not sure she's hearing what she needs to hear. Some of the truth she might need to hear. But yeah, I mean, that was shocking. But Serena is back. That first set, she did well to kind of get back into it. And I thought she was going to break to take that set. And then she kind of lost her way a little bit. And then she was a break-up again in the third set. But, I mean, people are always inspired when they play Serena. And Tan was very much inspired, playing shots that you don't really see people hit. Lots of backspin, lots of slice. Serena, obviously, a bit rusty at the start, a bit nervous, obviously coming on after so much time away. And I think it's positive, though, if Serena can get through this, because she's moving much better than I was expecting based on kind of the Eastbourne matches, where I think she was probably trying to protect the injury slightly, and she was on at quite a late time, so it could be a bit slippy. But I was impressed with her shot making. She's staying very far into the court.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because, you as you said, you spoke about Simona Halep and how she was, hugging the baseline, stepping in, not giving time to her, opponent. And it felt like watching that, it felt like Serena also had similar sort of tactics. I was wondering whether she felt that Tan, was going for the angles and was trying to cut it, was trying to cut those angles down.
I think she just couldn't get the ball past her. I think Tan was moving really, really well. And Serena didn't want to play her game, and I guess especially kind of playing herself back into fitness. I mean, she's on for 3 hours at the moment, but I think it was the decision that she really did not want to be on the court for 3 hours and have to play 7 balls because she'll probably miss the 7th, So I think it was kind of wanting to be aggressive, wanting to play the match on her terms, also wanting to kind of not have to make this into a sort of a too physical a contest. But I feel like it might be at 2 hours and 48 minutes.
I mean, it's impressive, I think, how Tan has bounced back from that second set. Because you would have just thought Serena of old come in and steamroll.
I think she wants it too much, and that's something that I think Navratilova always says, is that she never got nervous until she was at the end of her career, and then every single opportunity means so much more. And I mean, she must really, really want 24.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel like you can feel that in some of the shots that go long or go wide. Is that there's almost like she feels like there's too much going into it.
All of the Grand Slam finals that she's played since coming back from maternity leave, I mean, it's just been a case of thinking that she's over pushed. So I think it's there is a tendency there. So I really hope she gets through this. If it gets to 6-all, Joel, do we suspend recording?
Unfortunately, Chris, it doesn't.
It doesn't work
like that.
Okay,
but
okay.
we can come back to it if that does happen. But at the same time, we're not going to pause if the worst happens. And
my commitment is with Tennis Weekly, 100%.
I mean, some other kind of matches that went on today of note. We had Alex de Minaur, who replaced Berrettini on court 1, came through against Hugo Dellien, which was quite a nice win. Alex de Minaur, he might be sensing that as an opportunity now. In this half, there's going to be players who are going to want to obviously make the most of having the absence of players like Cilic and Berrettini, and maybe Alex de Minaur. He's quite a reasonable grass courter, so he could be one to take that position on. So that was quite a good, nice win there. And also on court 1, we had Heather Watson.
Yes, we did.
Match from last night against the German Korpach. It was 1-all overnight. Heather Watson coming back onto number 1 court, got the job done. 6-4, 5-7, 6-2 in that third set. And I think we'll be remembering that on-court interview afterwards for a while, because it was unexpectedly emotional, wasn't it, from Watson?
I feel like I can understand it, because anyone who watched her match last year, where she just completely beat herself, and it's been a really tough, and she said it in her interview, it's been a really tough 2 years, and you can see it in the results and some of the belief that she at times doesn't have in herself and some of those frustrations. So I really didn't think she was going to get this win based on how she sort of scuppered some real opportunities in that first set. And she was pushing her forehand, and you could tell that she was just not able to play freely. So for her to come back and regroup and come through in that set, I think it just meant the world, because she's seeing all these other British girls doing amazing things, and she's obviously a little bit older than a few of them. So it must just feel so good to get that same feeling, a feeling that she hasn't had for a while. And I just think good on her, she really does. I think she really does deserve to give herself some more opportunities, because she hasn't always taken the opportunities that she should have got. So it was very emotional, though. I was a bit emotional watching it, and I'm pretty much dead inside, Joel. So I think it was amazing.
I mean, she said, it was, it's been a rough couple of years,
Yeah.
and we can all remember, that her match on number 1 court last year against Christiane, perhaps, one of the worst losses. Arguably, she might look back on her career when it's all said and done and say that was her worst, her worst
painful
loss. Yeah, lucky loser, had, match point, wasn't able to get the job done, and it really kind of felt, with this win today, it was sort of therapeutic in the sense that she's able to exercise those demons even to given what happened on this court last year. And I think that does have to take belief and confidence, and to really kind of believe that you can get through that. And I do think we've seen certainly over the last 6 months or so that we've seen her on court, and I actually just don't think the belief has been there. There's been a few too many 3-set losses. There's been flashes of brilliance, agreed, but it's ultimately, unfortunately, at the WTA tour level ended in defeat. And it was actually great, I think, just this time to see her just take hold of the situation and come through it.
Yeah, and I think Heather Watson, when any British fan knows, if you see Heather Watson up a break in the first set, she probably will lose in 3. It's one of those ones where it's almost like it's
one of those things.
Yeah.
It's an unwritten rule of tennis, isn't it?
It is, and you get nervous for it. But hopefully, after this one, she's been able to mentally right the wrong of last year in her mind, and she can really kind of play some free tennis. So next round, she has Wang, who took out the number 14 seed Belinda Bencic, who has that sort of giant killing reputation as well. I mean, she's currently ranked...
Beat Serena.
Well, exactly. She's currently ranked 140, and since kind of the quarterfinal and I think the 4th round at the US Open at back end 2019, 2020, where she took out Serena, she just hasn't been able to string together the wins. She had a few matches in Australia. I think she won this year, but that's got to be an opportunity. That's a great draw for a second round when you could be facing the number 14 seed. So, what do you reckon? Can Heather go deeper in the tournament?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. You know, as I said, it's been a rough. You know, she's admitted it's been a rough couple of years for her, and you know she'll take great belief and confidence from this victory, and I hope she can carry that momentum on. You know, it was also great to see Katie Boulter as well today, another Brit win, and through to round 2 in the ladies section against Clara Burrell 7-5, 6-3.
Indeed.
There were a couple of you know, quite tight tussles for players. I'm not gonna lie, Chris. I thought, you know, could feature at the latter end of the tournament. In particular, Coco Gauff, who had a very hard fought win against Rusa of Romania, 2-6, 6-3, 7-5 in the third set. Kvitova also, you know, had a good lead up tournament and, you know, lost the first set to Jasmine Paolini 6-2, and I was thinking, where did that come from? A little bit like Haddad Meyer in day one, but yeah, a couple of Grand Slam champions there that I thought, you know, were maybe going to have easier matches than, you know, they necessarily did, but certainly good tests for them to come through.
Absolutely, I think for sure, Petra Kvitova, it's always a challenge for her coming off the back of a great week, because she does have those great weeks and they tend to be kind of slightly in isolation, but it was just too many errors.
Yeah, it seemed to just come out of nowhere, I feel.
Yeah, like when she won...
I feel like we put Kvitova in that Muguruza camp of I do nothing, I do nothing, I do nothing, da da da, get to a Grand Slam, and then we're still talking about, oh, do you know what? Kvitova could be a could be a dark horse for the tournament.
Completely. And I mean, I even thought maybe this tournament, she's someone you definitely wouldn't want to face, but can she get through those early rounds? So very promising that she did get through and she got better. Coco, slightly surprised by that because she really does enjoy playing on grass. But she got very lucky to come through. And so a lot of collector set viewers were probably watching that eagle-eyed, because if someone predicted a round 1 exit, that would have been probably the only person who would have predicted that.
I mean, Kim, I think, has got her going to the semi-finals. Spoiler alert for collector set. But yeah, no, there was definitely a big sigh of relief for Coco Gauff, because I think in Australia as well, she, you know, had a good lead-up tournament, but I think she went out in round 1. So
maybe she's a clay specialist. A clay specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she does. She loves the dirt. So maybe it's been more of a challenge than she thought.
Yeah, but I mean, moving on to the men's side, I guess that, you know, the biggest seed, you know, to go out today was Felix Auger-Aliassime, number 6 seed. We had eyes on this match, me and Kim, in our preview pod. Maxime Cressy, very much a dark horse, not necessarily for the tournament, but certainly to knock out, you know, us, you know, seeded players.
I mean, I'd back him for the quarterfinal now after that result. I mean, why would you bet against him? You know, he won, I think it was 2 tiebreak sets and then a 6-4 second set. It'd be hard to bet against him. Also, Joel, I am paying full attention. Serena has saved a match point. We're in a tiebreak.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Things are happening. I'm focusing. All I have to look at is the service speed. That's all I know. And it's slowing down. And the second serves are making me nervous. But yeah, there was a great win. I was watching some of that match, and I was surprised by how good Cressy was off the baseline. I kind of felt like he was the serve, the volley, and maybe he didn't have the game from the back to back it up. But I saw some great returns today. I think Felix will be pretty disappointed with that. But I mean, it's very difficult to play against a player like that. Kind of reminds me of a bit of a Mishka Zverev in terms of, you know, when he had the Australian Open run and he was pretty much serving volleying the whole tournament. It's quite difficult to adjust to play someone like that. And it's especially if they're serving well, it's almost impossible to kind of break that run of a great serve and a put away with a volley.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like he's like now the, I mean, to me, Maxime Cressy is almost like now that Berrettini's out, I'm like, who's the heir apparent to Berrettini in terms of, like, you know, big serve, likes to come to the net, decent from the back of the court. And yeah, I think Cressy, is very well suited in all those departments. So he is going to be a very tricky customer going forward in the tournament. We also had wins for Diego Schwartzman, Bautista Agut, Valio Pelka, Botic van der Zandschulp, Jensen Brooksby. Now, one player I had my eye on for potentially going and doing things, maybe cheeky run to the second week. Not going to happen because unfortunately they had to retire. Was Grigor Dimitrov. He was a setup against Steve Johnson, the American, but had to unfortunately withdraw due to a groin injury. Again, when I saw this news, it came after the Berrettini news, the Cilic news the night before. I was just like, oh, when is the bad news gonna stop? When are all these forced withdrawals gonna stop? And yeah, I was a little bit sad for Dimitrov because he's such a crowd pleaser on the court, and disappointing for him.
He really is a maybe man. I say this all the time, and I just feel like, I mean, the amount of posts he does on Instagram of him kind of doing the splits or sort of foam rolling out his inner thigh. I can't believe he got a groin injury. It almost blows my mind because that's almost 100% of his content is his flexibility. So that did look like a nasty one. Obviously, we hope that he recovers quickly. But he was a setup, and again, we have thought that he would do particularly well. He was playing well going to the French, and then he was kind of completely brushed aside all of a sudden. So I think I always take that stuff. Like, I don't think it's a great loss. I think it's a great loss for the British public who really enjoy watching him, a spectator's loss. But in terms of kind of when it gets to the business end, I'm not sure that he would have kind of featured too heavily. But another match that was also on was the Shapovalov match, where he has been struggling for form. That is for sure, in terms of getting consistency in his form. But he was able to get through in a fifth set. I mean, looked like he was cruising against Arthur, I'm going to say Rinderknecht?
Yeah, Rinderknecht.
I'll take that. It is a silent K. I've learned that now. But he was really cruising, and then all of a sudden, a couple of tie breaks, and he was down, and he had to come back to win the last two sets. So hopefully he can take a lot of confidence from that, and he's able to build on that, because we're talking about fan favourites. He's always enjoyable to watch, apart from when he's yelling at himself.
I mean, talking about fan favourites and another 5-set match, we had Nick Kyrgios versus Paul Jubb.
Paul Jubb.
Now, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it now before we all just get really excited. Lovely Jubbly. Okay. Everyone is saying that on social media. Okay. We get it. His name's Paul Jubb. Okay. But no, Paul Jubb absolutely played very, very well. I sort of had a thought he was going to enjoy, that match against Nick Kyrgios, who I think in the build-up just said, "Yeah, I'm going to play the pantomime villain," in this match. And there were his usual tricks, underarm serves, obviously being one of them, tweeners, some good, some bad, but I think they both kind of reveled in that situation, and Kyrgios was just able to sneak through in the end in the fifth set, 7-5. But a good experience for Paul Jubb, I think. It's not easy, I think, playing someone like Nick Kyrgios, where I feel like so many things that could potentially distract you. And so for him to kind of keep his composure and take that first set, which was very him making the most, I think, of quite a few what I would say uncharacteristic Nick Kyrgios errors, but nice for Jubb, but Kyrgios coming through in the end.
Indeed. I mean, the key thing for me, obviously Kyrgios said that he played kind of unbelievable kind of tennis, played exceptional tennis is the quote, and that he obviously really enjoyed the moment. But I mean, he did spit in the direction of the crowd, and he admitted that there are a few people in the crowd who were kind of criticizing him, and that was for them. And so I just think I try so hard. I mean, I love the excitement of his tennis, but there reaches a point, where you've got to start behaving better. And the time to, really make your point to a crowd member isn't against a wild card in the first round of Wimbledon. So I think there should be some repercussions for this behavior, because that is beyond unacceptable. And I think people saying it as a headline, I think people should be asking whether he should be disqualified, because you can't spit at somebody. on any tournament anywhere, and you can't admit to it. And if you do admit to it, then the umpires, I mean, I would still like them to make a decision on it, because I don't want people to think that behavior is okay. It's not good.
Especially with, heightened things around hygiene and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Berrettini, imagine if he did that behavior.
I am sure there's going to be repercussions there.
I want more than a fine.
It's interesting because, I feel like the British fans, more so I feel than other, types of tennis fans around the world, for them, Nick Kyrgios is a ticking time bomb, and they're going to interact with him, because they love it. It adds to the atmosphere, but also because they never know what's going to happen with Nick Kyrgios, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And, they sort of love him for that. So, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it was, nice for him, I think, to get the win. But yeah, I don't agree with, some of his conduct as usual on court. I just know Kim is somewhere just sort of shaking her head, based on
you and me both, Kim. Behavior. You and me both.
Yeah. But we're going to take a quick break now. But I hope you can join us in the second half, where we will be having a look back on all the action from day one at the championships. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to our Wimbledon Round One catch-up, sponsored by local tennis leagues. And now we're going to move back, Chris, to day one, the start of Wimbledon. It wasn't a picturesque start to the, start of the tournament. It was great. It was miserable. There was tennis, then there wasn't tennis. Kim was camping. And interestingly, actually, there weren't that as many people as she was expecting. And, actually just hearing some stats as well that are being put around on social media, just generally attendance was quite low for an opening day, which I don't know if that caught organisers by surprise, but it certainly caught me by surprise, because I think they were the lowest attendance figures for the first day of a tournament since 2007. So it's interesting. I was sort of surprised by that, because I would have thought, Wimbledon's around, everyone wants to get out again, unrestricted, make the most of, a nice day out. But it seems, quite a few people stayed away.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter that people were talking about, the fact that there were empty stands for Andy Murray and Heather Watson.
Yeah, you could see it on the TV.
You could, and I thought, you know what, it was probably at the start of a set and people had been in there for 2 sets and need to go out and get something to eat. I thought it might be one of those moments, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So it seems like numbers are lower. And I always thought that the first day of Wimbledon, it was never worth even bothering queuing for, because people have the whole weekend. They can start queuing on a Sunday. They don't have work on a Sunday, or most people don't. So I think that's is really telling. And maybe it's a sign of,
Why do you think that is?
I feel like it could be a combination of things. I think, obviously, a lot of last year was always going to be a really, really popular one. And so I think maybe it's a case where
it was like that immediate euphoria.
Yeah,
like,
we had that. We all went out
cheer.
again.
That cheer. Do you remember that cheer on centre court?
Oh, yeah.
The vaccines, and hooray for the vaccines, and it was just that euphoric feeling.
Yeah,
of just getting back out there.
There's always going to be a bit of a letdown, but I mean, I think you've got more theories than I do. I was just genuinely surprised, because all sporting events seem to get bigger and bigger and bigger these days.
I do wonder about, the cost of living, at the moment in the UK, and whether that has had an effect on specifically kind of the queue and immediate ticket sales. I understand that people who got tickets in the ballot, that wouldn't have, affected them as much. But certainly, I think people at the moment may, be feeling the pinch, and as a result of that, they can't afford, to spend £100 on a nice day out at Wimbledon, and as a result of that, they've maybe stayed away from the tournament.
Potentially international. What do you think about international audiences? Because I know that there's a lot of masks still being worn internationally, and potentially, especially in the US. So potentially that some of those international seats that would be bought traditionally by those kind of tours. I've seen lots of tours that people organise. Maybe there's less international interest. And maybe there was more last year, because, as you say, it was like the big get yourself back out there. you can go and you haven't been able to go for a few years. But yeah, it's very unusual at Wimbledon.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see if that continues, because you'd expect, going on later in the tournament, more exciting matches, getting towards, finding out who our champions are. I hope that we do obviously get to see 100% capacity, but yeah, a little bit of it feels like a slow start on day one, and who knows, maybe an argument again, like other Grand Slams, like the French Open, start on the Sunday, on the weekend. When people aren't necessarily working, because obviously that could have been a factor as well, the fact that just a lot of people work on a Monday. So
we're back in the office. Maybe it's that Joel. Could be that.
But I'll happily take some remote working from SW19. Yeah, let's talk about the action. I mean, centre court, similar to Rafa, as I said at the beginning, had Novak Djokovic against Son Woo Kwon, came through 6-3, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. Again, didn't really have it his own way the whole time. Was able to get it done in the end. Picked up a nice little record as well. Became the first man or woman, first player to win 80 matches at each of the Grand Slams, which is very, very impressive. But yeah, another sort of surprising slow start, but perhaps maybe not as surprising as Rafa, because I remember last year Jack Draper took the first set off Novak Djokovic, and so from that point of view, I was less surprised. But you just think world number one on his home court, hasn't lost on this court, I think, back to 2017 against Thomas Berdych in his quarterfinals. So again, from that perspective, still left me a little bit like, ooh, what's going on here?
It's, as you said, it's not unusual. He's lost sets to, say, Jack Draper, Brooksby. He does tend to lose sets to players.
It feels like he does have these lapses now more than before, where he is chucking in a set that is to his opponent. Well, I think that's actually unfair on Kwon, because I actually think he played very, very well in that second set. He totally deserved to win that second set, to be honest.
But does he deserve to win a set against an in-form Novak Djokovic? No. At his level and so much higher. I do have to interrupt this announcement because Serena Williams has just lost in a third set tiebreak in 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh,
that is really painful.
Get the violins out.
Honestly,
get the violins out. I'm sorry, Chris.
I'm going to find it hard. Again, I find it hard to concentrate, and now it's game over for me. So, Joel, you might be on your own for the rest of the pod, but I wish...
I'm just going to do a monologue.
Yeah, exactly. We can just talk more about less people and the cost of living. But I think it's definitely a case that, I wish she played Eastbourne and played singles, because she said she was ready to play singles, but...
you're really sad about this, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
I can tell your voices dropped.
I think she is probably the greatest athlete of all time. Controversial. Maybe not controversial. I just think, So this is a real blow, but hopefully she'll be at the US Open. And now back to Djokovic. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll continue to progress. It depends if he's got COVID or not, because we all know he's not vaccinated. So that's my only question. So we'll watch this space.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, I'm sure he's going to pick up his game, and it was a momentary blip. We did have another 4-set win for Andy Murray against James Duckworth on centre. Again, perhaps this was a little bit more expected, because, Murray, we had fitness concerns coming in. There was talk about his serve and how little serving he did after Stuttgart. But, and actually, in that first set, his serve was all over the place. Yes, Duckworth was playing very, very well. He was almost, I think, playing the best he could. As Andy Murray was not really, and he was having real issues finding any sort of rhythm on his first and second serve. But once that was out of the way and he reset himself from that second set, it turned out to be relatively comfortable. That fourth set was a little bit trickier, I think, under the roof, where serving conditions were better, and you felt it was going to be just the case of one break or even a tie break. But Murray able to eventually get it done in the end. And I think the most promising thing was that, at the end, he's basically said that, look, yes, at the end of Stuttgart, I had a bit of an injury question, and that led to me pulling out of Queens. But it doesn't look like that has, touch wood, has hampered his play on court. Certainly not in his first match.
And it felt a bit different. Last year, I went and I saw him play against Oscar Ott, who's now seeded. So, I mean, that's quite impressive, and maybe it puts a different spin on that match. But that one, we were all worried throughout. We were very, very nervous because of the fact we know that he was struggling for form. It was a little bit desperate at times last year. Whereas I felt like this match had there was a confidence about Murray. Like, obviously after dropping that first set, he did get it done in the next three. And we've seen so many of those matches go 5 where he hasn't been able to keep the momentum once he's got it. So I feel like he played himself into it. He started to play a lot better, started to serve better. And I think it's a bit of a difference from last year in terms of some of the very nerve-wracking matches we've had. I felt like he was going to do it, and he got it done. So I feel like there's a lot of positives there.
I think also he was helped by Duckworth. I think he got just fixated on the roof, and he was like, umpire, close the roof. Referee, close the roof. And I think he went a little bit AWOL, towards the end of that, that third set, which sort of run away from him a little bit. But good performance from Murray, and also a good performance from Emma Raducanu, who came through Alison van Uytvanck, 6-4, 6-4. Now, Chris, I feel like the hype for this match, it was like Alison van Uytvanck was the 10th seed and not Emma Raducanu, because we were all so worried about Alison van Uytvanck's form on the grass, her wins and her play, on the ITF level. And, I think she reached a WTA grass court quarterfinal as well. But, Emma Raducanu, she just brought it, didn't she? It started a little bit nervy. Both players had long deuce games, but the more I felt Raducanu grew into that match, she was playing some very, very good tennis.
She really was. I also agree with you on the Alison van Uytvanck point, because I texted you being like, why is everyone pretending she's Iga? Like, I'm really confused by this. And maybe it's because we've now shifted our attitude slightly with Raducanu, of thinking that, there are some really challenging opponents. And when you're first finding your feet on the tour, these are the sort of matches that can be really difficult against someone who's a bit unconventional. But big audience, Emma loves a big crowd, a home crowd, biggest crowd since she's played in front of, probably since the US Open, presumably. Well, certainly the noisiest, let's put it that one, as that. I think she rose to the occasion. I was slightly concerned from her pre-tournament interview, where she didn't say she was injury-free. She said she was good to go, or was words to that effect, which you kind of felt like were carefully chosen.
I can play at 90%, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah, and I don't think she really wanted to say she wasn't or anything like that before the tournament. And it's something where, when we've seen her before in Australia, when she had blisters to the point where she couldn't play, and she still said, I'm going on court, and she blooming well almost got it. So I think she knows that she can do an awful lot even when she's not at 100%, and we don't always know when she's not at 100%. She can tell us afterwards, but she was playing well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as you said, Van very unconventional player, a lot of kind of, a lot of spin, a lot of, redirection from the baseline, good volleyer as well. But Emma was just, able to kind of deal with that threat and deal with it really convincingly. I will say, though, those earrings, those are not practical sports earrings, are they? Come on.
They're from Tiffany's, I assume, right?
I know. What, from that Tiffany's sports range?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, no, they're just like dangling there. I was just like, oh, these are very pretty, but I'm like, and I understand, I get, like, you've been paid lots and lots of money to wear them, but
she'll turn up. She'll turn up wherever the contract states, and she
made sure the earrings were in the all white dress code.
Oh yeah, and she wore them to the post-match interview in a Rafa shirt. The earrings were still present, so I wonder how much per minute she's getting paid to wear those earrings. But if I was getting paid to wear them, I also would wear them, and I would, I would talk about them as much as I could get my rate up. But I was really pleased to see her back, see her playing well, and there's something about for her playing in front of a British crowd where I feel like it frees her.
I think that's really refreshing, actually, because I think too many Brits we've seen over the years just get, I feel like, paralyzed by the pressure of playing in front of a home crowd. We spoke to John Lloyd, about his book Dear John, the other week, and he said he never felt like he fully performed at Wimbledon, given the home crowd and the pressure and the expectation there. But I think it's refreshing to see Emma Raducanu, remind me of when Andy Murray broke on, in the sense that she just revels in it. She's like on Jabeur. She just is brave. She takes it all in her stride. And yes, there are loads of billboards and advertising campaigns promoting her at the moment, but she's focusing on her game. And yeah, she really kind of didn't just let any of that expectation weigh her down in a match against a potentially tricky opponent.
I do love the statements that came out prior to Wimbledon starting, which was, I think it was iconic. Rather than Emma saying, "I'm not being distracted by all my endorsements, I'm fully focused on my tennis." Like, she said that a few times, where she puts the same amount of time in, it's negotiated, like it doesn't affect her court time like people say it does. But her agent said it's not affecting her. And I was like, that is a boss move, right? The agent will say it's not affecting her. Of course he'll say that. I kind of like it though, but I don't think it is.
Exactly. I mean, we did have a couple of 5-set matches on the men's side for two players that, again, people were looking at maybe in the ones to watch stroke favorites category, and that's Carlos Alcaraz and Hubert Hurkacz. Contrasting fortunes here, because Alcaraz did come through his 5-set match against Jan-Lennard Struff 6-4 in the fifth, whilst Alejandro Davidovich Fokina defeating Hubert Hurkacz. I mean, Chris, this could have been a lot easier and simpler for Davidovich Fokina, I feel. 2 sets up. He was up in the third set as well. Decides to hit a tweener from the baseline that felt ill-advised at the time. And, after 4 sets of tennis, it still felt very ill-advised, because he went on to lose that third set, went on to lose that fourth set, and was a breakdown in the fifth set as well. But he showed great mental strength, I feel, to come back and win that in a final set tiebreak, particularly against someone like Hurkacz, who, as I said, there was expectation on him to go far here, given Halle champion the week before. But for him, I think he's a player who's impressed me, because he played very well in Monte Carlo earlier this year, but he's also, I think, quite a handy Spanish grass court player.
My real frustration with this result is that Hurkacz should be a player that has it all. He's one of those players that I say that about, but his mind goes to the races. It's so hard to know kind of who was turning up that day. And I mean, for the first 2 sets, he just was not playing the tennis that he can play. And I think I've seen this more and more on the men's side, that players that have phenomenal serves seem to get broken all the time. And I understand people are getting better at returning, but I do think it's something where even if you're having a bad day, lots of players with great serves are able to bring that to the table, every match. So I think it's one where I think he should be winning these matches. I think Davidovich Fokina, I mean, he did so well to stay in it after, when you have that match point, mentally it's so difficult to stay with it. Going down a break, a super close tie break where it was very, very tight from both of them. But it was on Hurkacz's racket. Fokina did get a bit passive. So great for him to get through. Surprised that he's done that. But again, another loss for the top 10 seeds.
Yeah, I know. One, probably the biggest surprise on day one. And what was interesting, I mean, people were talking about this, Chris, the Halle curse.
Yes.
The Haller curse. Non-Roger Federer Haller champions since 2011 have all lost in round one at Wimbledon. Hurkacz in 2022, Humbert in 2021, Coric in 2018, Florian Mayer in 2016, Tommy Haas in 2012, and then Philip Kohlschreiber in 2011. So, yeah, I feel like that's like, go and play Queens. Don't play Haller. There's the Haller curse. So, and Hurkacz is now a part of that infamous group. But yeah, he'll be disappointed. The other seventh seed in the women's draw also went out on day one. Danielle Collins.
Oh, our girl Danielle.
Danielle went out to
Yeah.
Marie Bushkova 5-7, 6-4, 6-4. I mean, this was just a fantastic tennis match. I thought great quality. That third set, I feel, was just very very, very good quality. And Bushkova, she just was not missing, I felt. She was hitting very, very few unforced errors, and she moved around the court very, very well. I was very, very impressed by that. So, yeah, great upset win for Bushkova against Collins.
I was impressed as well. I was impressed with her against Serena and Ons last week. Super impressed with her game. She kind of pushed through, kind of coming into, 2020. She had a really great year, and she hasn't done as much since. But no, I think if she plays a tight game, she's a pretty difficult opponent for Danielle, because she gets a lot of balls back in court, and she can also strike winners herself. And she had a great ratio in that match. So a shame to see Danielle go out, but I think Bushkova, it's also good to see someone who kind of did have that early success. It'd be great to see her sort of recap some of that form.
Yeah, and just finally, before we go on to collect a set, I mean, we also had Haddad Maia, arguably the most in-form women's player on the tour, go out in round one to Kaya Juvan, 6-4, 4-6, 6-4. You know, she said she was very disappointed after her match, particularly with her mindset. She said, today and also against Kvitova, I wasn't as focused as I should have been. That's what hurts me the most. And to me, that suggests maybe she overplayed in the build-up. Felt like she just played every single grass court tournament possible. And maybe she was just overspent going into this, going into the Grand Slam and the main event. So maybe she looks at her schedule in the future. But yeah, I mean, Kaya Juvan, again, another player who's just a dangerous round one opponent, whoever you're going to face. But given Haddad Maia's momentum, yeah, bit of a surprise.
I mean, if you aren't a player that normally has that many wins, it's probably kind of, you do come back down to earth. You can't always sit like a football. And obviously she was doing just that. So I think I'm not too surprised, but maybe, Haddad Maia, maybe she doesn't get out of bed unless they're ranking points these days, could also be that. And I mean, something she can take from this is you get a decent paycheck for round one, but she probably, all of her points have made such a difference to her ranking that the opportunities she's going to get later in the year are going to be really great. Yep. But I mean, where are we as a kind of a little debate here, Joel? Where are we on the play a warm-up tournament or don't play a warm-up tournament? Don't just play doubles in a warm-up tournament is what I'd say.
I think you play one event. And I think you play it in the UK ideally. I just think the conditions, are going to be similar to Wimbledon. You don't have to travel far. I think, I don't
National
think
rails down
playing. Very true, but I don't think you can't turn up and play an exhibition. I understand that there are special circumstances, particularly I think for players who might be older and don't feel like they need to play a build-up event. But if I was just a regular tour player, getting into main draws of WTA events, I'd be looking at playing one British build-up event, perhaps two, and then off to Wimbledon.
The grass court season has got a bit longer, especially with all this Surbiton hype.
Yes.
So I remember always went sort of straight from French Open to Queens, and that always felt very abrupt, a very swift change. And I think it's one where you want to make the change quite quickly. I would probably play one early on and then maybe give yourself a bit of a break where you practice more than you play matches. But yeah, I think it's a sign that don't play every week on grass.
No, I agree.
You'll start. You can't keep a run on grass is particularly hard to keep going.
Yeah, and I think Haddad Maya unfortunately learned that the hard way. Let's move on. We've got our collector set predictions for 2022 Wimbledon. So, listeners, we asked, what round do you think these 6 players will reach, or if they will win? And that was Rafael Nadal, Matteo Berrettini, Nick Kyrgios, Serena Williams, Iga Swiatek, and Coco Gauff. Before we go on, obviously Berrettini has dropped out. So, I mean, unprecedented times in collector set, but we're just going to scratch Berrettini off. So collector set is now going to be out of 5. Serena Williams out in round 1 as well. But my predictions were Rafael Nadal final, Matteo Berrettini semi-final, Nick Kyrgios quarter-final. I mean, this is the most awkward of all, Chris. Serena Williams champion.
Right. Okay. So
Iga Swiatek semi-final, and I've got Coco Gauff in round 4.
So the curse of what you've done here is that you've actually done this to Serena. So I hold you personally responsible because the first time I came on the pod and did collect a set, you'd said whatever you put in won't happen. Whatever you predict won't happen. So Serena fans, please go after Joel. Whereas
who have you gone for?
Well, so I went Nadal semi-final. Berrettini actually put a little C because I thought he'd get COVID next to it. I actually think that's an F. I think I said final. Kyrgios, I said quarterfinal. Williams said 3rd round. So I was trying to be like slightly optimistic, but also like realist. Iga, I said semi-final, and then Gauff I put for a quarterfinal. So I've done slightly.
How are you feeling after the last couple of days?
I honestly think that grass is the great leveler. Anyone can win, anyone can lose. Like how many Tan can beat a 23-time Grand Slam winner, having not been able to put 2 wins together this whole season. So, I mean, Serena's put no wins together this season. So, understand maybe that's not a great stat, but yeah, I think anyone can win, anyone can lose, and I think we might be in for a surprise on both sides. I think we really could. The only thing that makes me think not so on the men's is the 5-set format. It's harder to spring a surprise on one of the players that are more seasoned at the 5-set, but I'm not confident, Joel. I'll put it that way.
Okay, well let's see how we get on. But I'm obviously not confident either.
Obviously not.
Yeah. No, I feel like if I could just not be bottom will be a result. But yeah, we'll get Kim's collector set predictions as well once she comes back on later on in the week. But let's look on to day 3 at Wimbledon, Chris. We've got Djokovic, Raducanu, Murray all on centre court as per day 1. Djokovic has got Kokkinakis. Emma Raducanu has one of Kim's favourites, Caroline Garcia, and Andy Murray rounds off centre court with John Isner. Kontaveit, Norrie, and Sakkari on court 1. Casper Ruud's on court 2. Where are you looking at? What matches are sparking your interest?
Well, I'll tell you what. All of those matches on centre for a second round are pretty spicy. I think Kokkinakis will take a set. I think I don't think he's going to get. Oh, do I? It's hard to predict, having seen Djokovic play at the start of the week, but I do think that could be a tricky one. I think Garcia Raducanu will also be tricky. I think Emma will probably get that. I'm nervous about an Isner match. You know, if he can serve his way out of it as well.
Even though the head-to-head's like 8-0 Murray, I'm still like,
okay.
They've not played each other in so long. It doesn't matter what the head-to-head says.
Yeah, I think I'm looking down, and I reckon my match of the day might be on an outside court. Unsurprisingly, Joel. Is it
Janina Wickmeyer versus Yelena Ostapenko?
It is. How did you know? I'm like, that's the perfect story. It's got Ostapenko firing winners left, right, and centre, and it's got the comeback story. The Belgium, the former, was she a former top 10 Belgium? I think she was.
She got to a Grand Slam semi-final, I think.
Yeah, that's true. So that is for court number 3, that is a high caliber second round. And I do think Ostapenko's going to win that. What about you, Joel?
I'm actually looking out on to court 12, and I want to watch Tim van Rijthoven versus Riley Opelka, the Dutch wildcard, making waves back home in the build-up. I'd go out and as long as it doesn't clash with Andy Murray, I'd like to go watch that. Given, I think that match could have a lot of tie breaks or very close sets that match could, I feel like, be decided by a point or two each way. But
another match, Joel, I've scrolled all the way down to court 17. Donna Vekic and Jessica Pegula are still yet to play their first round match, and that is a good first round match. Vekic is a great grass courter who's still kind of coming back into form after injury. And Pegula, I haven't seen her. Has she played on grass so far?
I don't think she has, I
don't think she has either, so we'll have to see, right?
And we've also got Harriet Dart, who's not played her round 1 match either.
Yes.
So, we're still playing a little bit of catch-up on Wimbledon.
And the double starts?
I know, exactly.
It's all go on day 3.
It's all kicking off, and I will be there. So that's all very exciting. So, yes, listeners, I hope you have enjoyed listening to this round 1, round-by-round catch-up with the Tennis Weekly. Make sure to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action at Wimbledon on whatever device you listen to us on. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all good podcasting platforms out there. You can also listen to us on the downloadtennis.com app. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Follow us on social media and email the show. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it's at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can email the show at tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or you can check out our website at www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Thursday at Tennis Weekly HQ to catch up on all the round 2 events at Wimbledon. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.